Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live. Sorry for being a few minutes late here. I'm pretty pissed off with that. This is as bad as I've felt after a game for quite some time. Like, I'm genuinely pissed off that the Warriors lost that game to the Mavericks, a depleted Mavericks squad. There's no excuse. There is absolutely no excuse. You guys have already thrown in a heap of comments in here, and I'll get to them in a second, but there's no excuse when they're missing Anthony Davis. They've obviously just traded Luka Doncic for him. He's out for a while. They're without PJ Washington. They're without a host of key rotation players. They're, huge minutes for, I'm looking at some of these guys. They're playing. Omax is playing 24 minutes. Kessler Edwards is their starting center, playing 33 minutes. Like, Najee Marshall's playing over 30 off the bench. Like, Brandon Williams, I've never heard of that guy. And he's playing 15 minutes and going for 12 points on 4 of 6 shooting. The Warriors, as Steve Kerr kind of said there in his post-game press conference, they just took too long to actually rock up and play, right? And they were down the majority of the game. They fought their way back into it. Steph 3 gave them the lead with 3.5 minutes to go. And you thought, yep, okay, maybe the Warriors have got into the groove of things in the nick of time to be able to get their third straight win. But this team, even with Jimmy Butler now, seems to be allergic to winning 3 games in a row. They haven't done it since November. And look, the officiating, and I'm sure you guys are going to get into it in the comments here, no doubt. The refereeing was awful, like the worst officiating. And I know there's always recency bias with stuff like this, but the officiating to me, I don't think I've watched every Warrior game this season. That's the worst officiated Warrior game there's been this season. Some of the stuff going on, I have no idea. No idea. And I'm not even talking about like there was the Kyrie charge call at the end, which, would have otherwise been a Butler and one layup, and he could have given the Warriors the lead. But like, whatever. That's a probably not even a 50-50 call. I'm happy for the refs to call that. You could argue that he wasn't there and he was sliding a bit. Whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm not even talking about that. The one that was maybe the most bizarre refereeing decision of the entire season, and was the kicked ball one where Pods tried to pass it to Draymond. The ball was kicked, evidently, and then they called something, and then for some reason it was Dallas ball, and I'm still not particularly sure why. There was talk that there was an 8-second violation, but there was still 17 left on the shot clock. They actually, on the broadcast, on the ESPN broadcast, there was an explanation, but it actually wasn't the proper explanation. It still left us confused. Some of the stuff, like there were some non-calls there going into the rim. Like there was one, again, this is a very specific play that, people won't necessarily point back to, but there was one where Steph was going to the basket. I thought he got easily fouled by Klay in the fourth quarter there and wasn't called. There was a lot of stuff where it was just really, really bizarre. There were a couple of non-calls where there was one with Butler. I think Kyrie or someone might have made a layup, and Butler's gone flying to the floor, and I feel like it was a foul either way. Like it should have been either a blocking foul or a charge either way, and nothing was called. Some of the decisions they did make, and then some of the decisions they didn't make was just purely bizarre. But that doesn't change the fact that Golden State should have won this game regardless. Like they've got too much talent as opposed to the Mavericks in this game, that they should have won. They shouldn't have been relying on, the officiating, right? You've got to try and win this game, even putting up with some questionable refereeing decisions. And I think Golden State, there's just no excuse. I'm happy to listen and talk about the poor refereeing, but ultimately, like, that shouldn't have mattered at the end of the day. Like, there's too much talent on this team as opposed to the Mavericks, who had half their guys out. They had no center, Gafford out, Davis out, Derek Lively out. Steph was, he got going a bit late, but he was pretty awful. 25 points, 4 of 13 shooting, 9 of 23. Buddy Hield, I have no idea how Steve Kerr thought it was a good idea that he would play 29 minutes. He played 29 minutes, was 1 of 9, 1 of 6, had 3 points, 3 rebounds, and was a minus 21 in 29 minutes. So the Warriors were a plus 17, right, in his 19 minutes on the bench. So I don't know why Buddy Hield played 29 minutes. I don't know, I'm pretty pissed off, like, all around. Like, Steph could have given us the lead there in the final 40 seconds with a second free throw, missed it badly. Like, the refereeing stuff, I don't know. It just feels. I think it's the expectation. Like that's the thing that really kills you is that since his Butler trade, things have been so positive over the first two games, and you go into a game like this, and my expectations have gone through the roof to a point where I look at this game. Yes, it's on the road, but you look at the outs that Dallas have, and you just think, okay, we should win this game. Like we should win this game, and to not, it just saps all the momentum, all the confidence that you've kind of garnered here over the last two games with back-to-back wins over the Bulls and the Bucks. So I don't know. It's like now you got to face Houston tomorrow. That's probably going to be a loss, and all of a sudden you go into the All-Star break back below 500 again. Like I don't know. It's really poor. Like it's really bad. I don't know what else to say. I'm going to go through your comments here. GSW says, I think the main problem with the Warriors is we aren't getting steals by kicking the ball since clearly a football violation ain't a real call. That's the most bizarre refereeing decision I've seen this season. Like, I don't know what they would. So I think the explanation on the ESPN broadcast was that it was an inadvertent whistle. Okay. But he kicked the ball. Like, Brandon Bajewski tried to pass the ball to Draymond Green. I think it was Williams kicked his foot out. Clearly, like, wouldn't have touched the ball if he didn't do that. I don't know. It was so bizarre. GSO says, watching the challenge call, and if this ain't a block, I'm crashing out. So I think that might have been the Butler-Kyrie one there at the end. Daniel says, wasn't just the blocking call at the end of the game. The refs seemed no good all night. It was terrible. Absolutely terrible. Daniel says, don't want to be a sore loser, but there were so many bad calls. Kyrie's ripped through. Kyrie's ripped through. Oh, my. I forgot about that one. Oh, my goodness me. In what world was that 3 free throws? In what world? I know they were in the bonus. Go to the line for 2. No worries. He literally sucked the refs into that one. He sucked them into it. He tried to claim he was going up in the shooting motion. That was a horrific decision. Like, oh, boy. Daniel says, I thought Draymond was insane defensively. Steph was a little lackluster overall. Yeah, Draymond was very, very good in that fourth quarter. Like, because the Warriors basically just decided, well, we've got no one who can guard Kyrie one-on-one. We tried GP2. We tried Moody. No one can do it. So we're just going to have to throw multiple bodies at Kyrie. And then obviously play 4-on-3. And some of Draymond's, not only his execution defensively, some of his block shots there in the fourth quarter at the rim, but also just his decision-making. I think in those kind of when the Warriors are basically, 4-on-3 against in those situations, I thought he was excellent. He had a good game, his best game since return, 13-5-5, 3 steals, 2 blocks. Just wasn't enough, though, at the end of the day. Just couldn't get it done offensively. I know, we're going to point to the Warriors' lack of perimeter defense and Kyrie going for 42 and not having a primary option to throw onto him. That's, obviously a big flaw for this team following the Wiggins-Butler trade. But really, it's like offensively, the Warriors shot less than 43% from the field and less than 29% from 3. Again, Hield and Curry just not great at all. Like, what they combined for 28 points on 32 shots. Like, they just make a couple more shots, you win the game. Like, simple as that. Robbie says, by no means were the Warriors perfect, but the refs were selling us. Priscilla says, one of the worst refereeing I've seen on both sides. Some of the no calls are ridiculous. Mavs played more serious than GS. Not playing bigs is crazy. Yeah, Quinton Post playing less than 12 minutes. I know he was a minus 19 in those minutes, but I don't think it was really his fault. I just think the whole Warrior team, felt as if to me, and maybe I can understand this a bit because maybe as a fan, I've got a little bit ahead of myself in terms of the expectations on this team, but felt like Golden State came in thinking, yep, we're on a roll now. We've got some momentum. Look at the guys that the Mavericks have out, and things are just going to happen for us as a result. Like we're just going to roll in and get a comfortable victory. And it took basically until the fourth quarter for them to decide. They had that late run in the first half, the 15-3 run to close the half to get within 1. And then Kyrie went nuts, for a brief period there in the third where he hit 3 straight threes, and all of a sudden the Mavs lead was back out to like 15 or whatever. And then took basically to the fourth quarter for the Warriors to actually stand up and say, oh, okay, we probably should play here. But the issue is when you get down to a 2 or 3 minute ball game, like you're leaving yourself vulnerable, as Steve said in the post game press conference. Like there's enough talent on the Mavericks, there's enough talent in the NBA that if it's just basically a tied game with 2 or 3 minutes to go, it's almost flip of a coin kind of stuff. And we know the Warriors have struggled in clutch situations this season, and the idea of having Butler was hoping that would fix that. Didn't happen in this game. Jimmy was okay, didn't shoot the ball overly well himself, but he still had 21 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. Like it's a great stat line for him. And things could have been totally different if they'd called a block there on Kyrie at the end rather than a charge. But it is what it is, unfortunately. Knox says this game could have been huge for us. Bench Buddy when JK comes back. I don't want to see him play more than 17 minutes a game. I stopped watching after Kerr got that text. Seems to me every time coach gets a tech, we lose. Yeah, the Buddy stuff was I cannot for the life of me comprehend how he played 29 minutes in this game. I just can't. Like, I suppose you can look, Moody played 27 and a half, Pajemski played 25. I know Pods, I suppose you can argue we can't play Pods, Jimmy, Draymond too much together, but Pods closed the game, and I just think he should have played more than 24 and a half minutes. Like he was 0 of 2 from 3-point range, wasn't a 3-point threat, but neither was Buddy. And at least Pods does a heap of other stuff, had 8 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals. Like, I don't know why. Like, I'm not saying Pods was lights out in this game and elite by any means, but I'm not sure how Buddy Hield's playing a few minutes more than him in any game, let alone this one where Buddy Hield's really struggling. So I don't know what's going on there. Priscilla says, I want JK back. Buddy was not it tonight. Yeah, I suppose Kuminga would have, on a night where Steph's struggling, having that extra scorer there with Kuminga probably would have been helpful. Another guy that can get to you 20 points. I'm excited to see that. It's really disappointing. Like you win this, like the idea was here to basically, at least, even if you lost to Houston tomorrow on the second night of a back-to-back, at least, 3 out of 4 games, you win going into the All-Star break, and then you get Kuminga back after the All-Star break and you build some momentum and away you go, hopefully. But this is it just feels every time Golden State try and build some momentum, it's deflated by a poor loss. And this was a poor loss, even, accounting for the refereeing decision-making, I suppose, throughout the game. Robbie says Moody needs to start over Buddy. I agree. I just don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. Like, what trust and faith do we have in Steve to make that decision? I don't think there is any. Jesso says, when is JK back? Thought it was this game. No, he's going to be out through the All-Star break. We'll probably know more at the end of the All-Star break next week sometime, and we'll go from there. Daniel says, I think Moody's worse when he's slow on the release for his 3. He missed 3 wide open ones where he had time, but when he's just shooting, he looks good. The one that he missed with 53 seconds left, the Warriors were down 1, and he had a wide open corner 3, and he missed that. And I was like, oh, he just needed to hit that. Like, that could have been a big confidence-building shot for him to give the team the lead. I mean, you can look at so many different plays. Steph missing, Steph getting fouled the next possession, going to the line, missing the second one when he could have given us the lead. There's so many different things, unfortunately. Robbie says, if Buddy starts tomorrow, I'm going to be pissed. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with their injury report, whether they decide to tank the game and rest Steph, Draymond, and Butler. Maybe they can't really because they don't have enough bodies. I suppose Pat Spencer and Jackson Rowe and Trace can play, but I don't know. There's just not enough bodies. It's almost like Steph, Draymond, and Butler, or at least 2 of those 3 have to play, you'd imagine. I'd suggest that Draymond might be the one least likely to play simply because of he's just coming off injury. Butler hasn't played much recently, so whether you don't want to necessarily tie him out. But to me, it's you've got the All-Star break coming up afterwards. You're going to have a big break. I'd be surprised if Butler's rested. And Steph, he played 37 minutes in this game. We'll wait and see. Thendix says, no excuse. Mavs had a ton of players out, but some of the decisions to rest made screws big time. Yeah. No excuses, though. I know the refereeing was terrible, but you got to win that game regardless. Knox says, Steph, Jimmy, Moody, Dre, and Post should be our lineup. Yeah. Tend to agree, but the Buddy Hield stuff, Steve's just going to continue going to it. Jesso says, on the positive side, at least the refs get a little more cash to support their families. Then Nick says, I don't want to see Buddy on the court. We got too many threes on a cold night. Shot too many threes on a cold night. The Buddy Hield, like early in the game, was taking. Why is this guy continually trying to cook off the dribble? Like, I literally only want to see catch and shoot threes. I don't want to see anything else. If you are open and you have a catch and shoot three, take it. By all means, no worries. But if you are closed down, get off the ball, start moving around again. Okay, maybe you get a backdoor layup every now and again. Fine, that's great. But stop putting the ball on the floor and trying to create. Okay, you got Jimmy Butler, so Buddy Hield doesn't have to do that. Okay, therefore put it away. Okay, Buddy, if you want to get into your bag, then go have some runs during the summer at local gyms. Okay, this ain't the team where you should be trying to cook, right? Catch and shoots only, please. The odd, your wide open layup off a backdoor cut or something like that, whatever. But please do not try and put the ball on the floor and trying to get to the hole, or it frustrates me. Red Sox says, I know that we have to be good enough despite the rest, but we're struggling. These blatant wrong calls will lose us games. Mark says, reason we lost, couldn't stop Kyrie. Draymond decided not to try. Steph wasn't hitting anything today. I mean, Draymond was definitely trying down the stretch. No doubt about that. Berserk Monks has been saying we were eventually going to feel the loss of our best point of attack defender. Agree with that. We had no answer for Kyrie, says Mark. We've never had. Yeah, he continually cooks us. The reasons we won't ever be a great team is because the core is old players just can't bring it every night. Good point, and is also a reason as to why we need to get Kuminga back in here first and foremost. AES says Warriors would not be in that position if Kerr had benched Buddy. It was apparent early on he was shooting bricks and the Mavs were hunting him on offense. Okay, can I just this comment just referring to Steve? One of the biggest things that frustrated me as well down the stretch is that, so Steph misses the second free throw. There's a Mavericks timeout. In that situation, game is tied. You have 2 timeouts remaining. I would have gone all defense on that possession. Like, put your best defensive lineup out there. Like Butler, Draymond, Peyton, Moody, and maybe Pods. Or not even, I don't know, like Gee maybe even. Like, I think you should have just gone all defense. Like, put your best defensive lineup out there. Steph's not part of your best defensive lineup, I don't think. Right? And what happens? They double team Kyrie, get the ball out of his hands. Najee Marshall ends up with the ball on the wing or in the corner or whatever, drives on Steph and hits a floater over Steph because Steph's too short. That's simply what it was. Gives the Mavericks the lead. The Warriors never score again, obviously. I would have just gone all defense. Steph wouldn't have been in the game. That would have been either, Moody or GP2 or Gee, guarding Marshall in that scenario. And that's a tougher shot. And you might get a stop on that position. And if you get a stop, take a timeout. Get Steph back in the game. You had 2 timeouts remaining. Right? I just would have gone all defense on that possession and just, whether the Mavericks made or missed the shot, like, take a timeout, get Steph back in. Instead, they decide to roll with Steph out there. Marshall hits the floater and you're down 2, and then you take a timeout anyway. I don't know. Berserk Monk says Kyrie probably hit most of his highlights tonight over Buddy. If we want our opponents to get in full confidence, have Buddy guard them. Pirate says 10 missed layups. Yeah, that's a good point. The layups, particularly in the first half, were bizarre. Like, what was there was, well, I don't know what Jimmy was doing in the first quarter when he got the ball under the rim. I think it was, he missed one, then got the ball back off an offensive rebound, then pump faked it out. It was like watching Kevon Looney. He pump faked 4 times, even though there was no defender around him, and then got stripped on the way back up. There was one GP2 missed an easy layup. There were plenty. Knox says unknown players always try their very hardest against the Warriors. Empire says they need to leave Buddy in Dallas. Broody says, Buddy makes me want to scratch my eyes out. AES says, Buddy Bricks, a shooter who has no defense and streaky offense. Poor Buddy, because he's actually been okay the last 3 or 4 games, to be fair. He's been okay, but unfortunately, he's just prone to absolute stinkers. Stinkers. Like, that is an awful game. You couldn't get much worse than the game he just played. Defense wasn't good. 1 of 9 shooting, 1 of 6 from 3. some of his cuts, like Steph passed him the ball at one point, he just wasn't looking and it went off out of bounds and it counted as a Steph turnover, but he was basically having a crack at Buddy for not continuing the cut. There was another time where Draymond was getting pissed at him. Don't know. Mark says, when GP2 makes his threes, you have to win. Yeah, GP2 did hit a couple of corner threes. Seemed more willing to take them too. AS says, and he holds on the ball longer than he needs to. Yeah, that pisses me off with Buddy. Mark says, Schroeder Melton would have helped guard Kyrie. Man, I wish we had Melton right now. Really, that guy needs to be almost the biggest priority in terms of free agency. I'm being dead. I know he's out injured at the moment. He's coming off the ACL, but God, he'd be perfect right now. A healthy version of him. Young West says, Buddy had 3 points in 28 minutes. Yikes. Sorry, just trying to get to your comments here. Orlando says, people may disagree, but Kuminga should have been traded instead of Wiggins. He's our core defender. Well, the salaries don't match, so that wouldn't have happened. Brody says, Buddy is so low. I'd rather have Dennis get Buddy off the team. Orlando says, Buddy and Moody should have sat the fourth quarter game. GP2 were effective. Mark says, Timberwolves and Suns losing. You can't take advantage of a Mavs team without 6 players and their fans booing the team. That's the other thing as well. Yeah, like the results actually the other results actually went the Warriors' way today. Like Milwaukee beat Minnesota in Minnesota with no Dame and Giannis. Like that's so random. Houston beat Phoenix. Good result. Utah beat the Lakers. How? What were the box score? What did Luka do in that game? Luka, just a 16-4-4 in 23 minutes. LeBron had 18. Yeah, they struggled. Was there anything else as well that kind of happened that was good for the Warriors? I mean, that's really like Timberwolves losing and Phoenix losing. They're probably the main things. And then like Dallas, you try like the Warriors with how the Mavs are at the moment with the injuries, the Warriors should be surging past the Mavericks in the standings. And yet now they're back to like being a game or a game and a half behind them. Very annoying. Mark says, how'd the Mavs win their challenge when Klay fouled Draymond on both plays? Trying to remember, the first one was on Butler, and they ruled that he like blocked the ball first, then made contact after with the ball left, which I was okay with that. And then trying to recall the second one, can't remember. Orlando says this wasn't a QP game, this was a GP2 and TJD game. I'm very confused on why he didn't play. Yeah, or you could have just played Looney more, I suppose. The Warriors did. What were the offensive rebounds? The Warriors did beat them up on the O boards, even when they went small. Like there's a point Steph was getting a putback layup at one point. Must have been a few. Like Butler had 6 offensive rebounds. A couple of those were off his own misses. Warriors had 18 O boards to 9. So they did beat them up a little bit, but yeah, guys, frustrating. Didn't beat him up enough, obviously. Mark says, WTF is Draymond making these awful passes to Jimmy? There are a few there where I feel like Draymond gets it on the roll from Steph, and then Jimmy's cutting baseline, and just all Draymond's trying to do is lob it to Jimmy for a dunk, and and everyone knows he's trying to do it. So the opposing team plays for that. Empire says, Buddy is terrible. It's ridiculous. These are G League. There are G League players better than him. Broody said, poor rotation secured the momentum. Mark says, the spacing is getting concerning. They didn't even have a center. Sean says, we ain't used post. Yeah, not necessarily a game for him, but I know you'd look at minus 19 in 12 minutes, but I'm not sure that was necessarily all on him. He probably should have played more. And also, there were times where he was getting guarded by Kyrie, and I was kind of like, I know this isn't the Warriors style, but maybe just everyone clear out. And if Kyrie really wants to guard him, like maybe do what your name suggests, get in the post and see what you can do, because he's too big for him. And I actually think he has some talent around the basket. He's not necessarily just a shooter. AES says Steph Gee, Jimmy Dre, and TJD. Just not enough shooting with Jimmy Dre and either TJD or Loon, I don't think. Cornelius says, Buddy and Pod's too many minutes. We need Post to play big with little man on him. Stop passing back out. Yep. Young Wes, I didn't like starting the second half with our small ball lineup. Mark says, did anyone play with urgency today? Not till the fourth quarter. Broody said, that's Kerr's fault. He wants Buddy to get going early. Unfortunately, he keeps him in either way. AES says, we will live and die by Buddy Hield as long as Kerr is the coach. Robbie says, need JK because he just doesn't miss layups. Effelang says, actually, if you think about it, the last 2 games we've won because QP's added points to the box. Yeah, I think he should have played more. Orlando says, Steph, GP2, JB, Gee, Draymond would have been the most effective lineup to take the win. Yeah, possibly. Again, GP2, Draymond, and Jimmy together. Not enough shooting, but anyway. Andrew the GOAT, that's a pretty embarrassing loss for the Warriors losing to an injured Dallas Mavericks team. Yeah, I'm pissed off. It's not just the fact they've lost. It's the fact that there's like a little bit of expectation now. I'm like, this team, like I've been on a high the last couple of days thinking, yeah, this team's actually like semi-good again and could actually make a run for the playoffs. And then it just, again, gets sapped away by a poor loss at a bad time. Jeffrey says, played Buddy too much. Empire, Curry, Butler, and Green can play tomorrow. They have about a week break. Buddy's the only one who needs to rest tomorrow. F-Lake says, Kerr is too loyal to his core players at the expense of everything. Buddy Hield's not even a core player, though. He's been here for just over 50 games. Bruce says, I thought they would put QP in at the end for a possible 3 after the last timeout. Andrew says, this Warrior team is not serious. We just lost to an injured Mavericks team. Jeffrey says, Kerr's boyfriend Buddy needs to come off the bench. Robbie says, on a positive note, Jimmy played well. Missed a couple of shots he'd ultimately normally make. The last one at the end, I think Tim Legler on the broadcast was right. He should have gone. Jimmy should have continued going right on Kyrie. Kyrie didn't really have the spot there, and Jimmy could have powered through him, I think, for a layup and maybe even an and one. The fact he kind of went into a Euro left basically meant that Kyrie did get to the spot and drew a charge, which is, ultimately one of the plays that's the difference in the game. FTW Clan, how do we lose a game as important as this with the Mavs missing half their roster? Exactly. Back to 500, says Thandecker. Knox says, pretty sure this game would have put us around the 7-8 range. Mark says, Jimmy's picking up the Warriors' offensive scheme by missing layups. Yeah, some of the missed layups in the first half and some of the turnovers were awful. Hield's IQ isn't very high. Not the first time I've heard that in the comments. Knox says there were a couple of plays where Jimmy was on Kai or post on Kai. Should have probably worked Kai on the offensive end. Good point. Try and tire him out there a little bit more. AES says, did the two play pick and roll? As in Steph and Butler? Not overly effectively, I wouldn't have thought. Robbie says, we're really an 8C team. I'd love to be an 8C team. No worries. I thought we were going to be. But loss like this, like, what are we doing? What are we doing losing this game? Brood says, but Jimmy looked gas at some points as expected. GSW, I love how most of the comments are either ref hate and buddy hate. Well deserved, though. Daniel says, I miss Wiggs. I think Jimmy is better, but it just feels weird not seeing him out there. Could have done something to slow Kyrie, too. Yeah, I mean, the alternative was to try and trade Draymond. I'm not sure Miami wanted Draymond necessarily. And Draymond's value in this game was shown on the defensive end. But ultimately, I know Steph got going a little bit in the last few minutes, but the difference is, he shoots 9 of 23, 25 points. Kyrie shoots 15 of 25, 42 points. One goes 7 of 10 from three-point range. The other goes 4 of 13. That's the difference to me. That's the difference. Jimmy did his thing. Draymond did his thing. You just hope that Steph didn't even have to outplay Kyrie necessarily, but if he could have just minimized that gap a little bit, you win that game. So it's poor. Young West says, do we want Buddy to win the 3-point contest? We'll probably play him more if he wins. That might be the first time in a long time where Warrior fans are actually cheering for Buddy Hield. Robbie says, I'm really just waiting for post-All-Star break with JK return. Yeah, me too. Anyway, we'll wait and see what happens against the Rockets tomorrow. Just a really disappointing loss for the Warriors. I'm going to finish it up there because it's just all negative, and I don't like being negative, but it's hard not to be. when you lose a game like that against a depleted Mavericks squad, 111-107, Warriors really took until the fourth quarter to rock up. And yeah, by that point, they left themselves vulnerable, as Steve said in the post-game press conference, which I think is probably the biggest takeaway from the game in terms of, like, you just can't muck around. Like, the Warriors are 500. They're trying to surge up in the Western Conference standings. You've got to be there every game. And I think it was Mark earlier made a good point. Like, it's hard to be, 110% intensity every game when you've got a 36-year-old, nearly 37-year-old Steph, 35-year-old Jimmy, nearly 35-year-old Draymond. It's hard to do that, but you're going to have to in order to make the playoffs. And this is just a really, really disappointing loss. So anyway, I'll finish it up there. I'll be back for a post-game live tomorrow after the Rockets game. After this one, I'm not expecting too much. I'm expecting a loss. I'll be happily proven wrong if that's the case. But again, I'll be back after that one to read your guys' comments and we'll see what happens. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Thanks again to everyone who's tuned in and commented. Thanks to those of you that are watching on the replay or tuning in on or via your podcast feed. Other than that, guys, let's hope for a different result against the Rockets tomorrow.